Hello, in an earlier video I shared how to do an informal play assessment with your child or a child that you're working with. That's very important to find out what a child's play level is. And that's basically, since we can't give a small child or somebody who's functioning at the level of a small child like a pen and paper SAT kind of a test to figure out what level they're functioning at, and often they can't tell us, which is one of the reasons that we have these concerns and we're doing this extra work with them. They can show us how their mind is working through the way that they play and they interact with the environment. So I could link that video at the end of this or in the description box down below. So in that video series I talked about how to set up that play assessment, and I talked about, and I mentioned that there were several items that I deliberately did not include in that assessment process, and those were a screen, anything with a screen like this, what you're watching me on, a ball, a car, or bubbles. And the reason for that is that a lot of times the person that we're trying to get their play level, the child or person who's functioning at the level of a small child, can get fixated on those items, and then they won't interact with any of the other items, and we won't be able to see what level we're really meeting them at when we're trying to help boost their cognition and get them towards more meaningful communication and hopefully even verbal communication with words. So I did say at that point that, however, there are still many things that we can do with these items, particularly in those cases that we are finding that this is a person that doesn't like to interact with toys, doesn't really play with toys. That's something that I hear a lot. Or a child who won't stay engaged with another person, and therefore we feel like we can't play with them, or we don't, or that they won't play with us, really. So there are ways to use these items, and I am now going to do a series of videos, quick tips on how we can use these items for engaging the child and laying the foundation for developing play and meaningful communication. So, our next video in this series of quick tips on helping to get your child to engage with you and the world around him or her is one of the very special materials that pretty much every pediatric speech therapist uses. Anybody who works with kids tends to have some bubbles close at hand. So there's a reason for that. They get attention and the kids really like them, and it works. So for a lot of kids, it's a very easy, gentle way to capture their attention and to start a nice back and forth going for this joint attention, this extended joint attention that I talked about in a previous video, which is just staying engaged with the same thing at the same time for a period of time with another person. And until a child can do that, until a person can do that, there can't really be any meaningful connection and certainly no meaningful communication. So we need to establish this first to as a foundation and get it really solid before we start trying to layer on higher level skills, including even basic play skills. It's a very important thing just in this interaction, this back and forth, where we're trying to help our children to connect more and to communicate more meaningfully. So what can we do with bubbles? There's a lot we could do with bubbles. I want to give you some quick tips on what we can do with bubbles to get the child's attention at first and to see how long we could keep that back and forth going and even get some meaningful communication going there. So getting their attention with bubbles is usually not hard. I've worked with lots of children, lots of ages, lots of developmental levels, and I don't think I've had a single child yet, even teenagers, who I can't get their attention with some bubbles. And it's a nice way of showing. One thing that's very nice about bubbles is there's very little demand with bubbles. And a lot of times when somebody feels a demand on them from another person, they don't want to connect. So a lot of times the message of bubbles is, I just want to be with you and share something nice and special. Who doesn't love bubbles? So to get that initial attention, just get close to them. You want to make sure that you've minimized other distractions. So if the television's on, probably won't work. If they're looking at their device, probably won't work. So choose a moment where the television is off, they're nice and rested, they're well fed, everybody's comfortable, everybody's in a pretty decent mood. And go ahead and take your bubble wand, and I'm going to try and show you with your eye, this little eye here, what we would do with a child. So you look, you smile. So when you have their eye contact, just look at it together. And you've shared a moment. And the idea is to try and keep that moment going for as long as you can. Even if it's just one moment every once in a while, even if that's the most you can get, just do it as often as you can. But if you could extend it, there are different ways to do it. These pauses are important. Pull it out. They're looking at it, they want it usually, they're reaching for it. And a lot of times they'll look at you, they'll look at it, they'll reach for it. Take a deep breath. Oh, a little bit of a tease that a lot of times will hold their attention. Oh, oh no. You want more? This is the sign for more. You want more? It's a very useful sign. Bubbles is a good way to help teach that sign or reinforce that sign if it's not a mealtime. A lot of times people do it with food. And then, a very important thing they can do to encourage what I call a request. Requests happen all the time, even without words. If they reach for it and look at you, I call that a request, and we want to encourage that. We want them to know that interacting with the people around them gets them what they want a lot of the time. That encourages them to communicate more. So if they look at you, they reach. If they make a sound, even better. Pop. You could race to pop them together. You could let them pop all of them and try and get the last one. I'm getting a little distracted by this. It's fun. It's also a nice way to lighten things up if it's been like a serious, busy kind of day and you just want a light, connected moment at the end of the day. So you could take turns blowing bubbles. You could let them try. I wouldn't let them hold this if they can't handle it, if you have a floor that you'd like to protect or you don't want to go out and buy bubbles every single day. But you could let them hold the wand. You could hold it for them. You could show them how to blow it while they're blowing it. If they're on this side, you're on this side. You could try and make eye contact and show them the mouth movement. You could try and blow it together. Or you could show the mouth movement and not blow, demonstrate. If they do that, they're learning from you. If they start imitating your facial expressions and your mouth movements, it's a good start to showing that they're ready to start learning from what you have to share. It's wonderful. Then another thing you can do, first of all, you could just keep playing as long as they're able to sustain attention with you. But another trick that I like to do that encourages a little bit of language and also helps to extend their attention is the counting trick, the counting pendulum trick. I never had a name for it before. I don't think you could look that up, but you could try. Maybe there's more information somewhere. If so, please share it because I'd like to see that. But what I do is I usually start with, now I keep the bubble wand, which they're very interested in. And this can help them feel more comfortable looking at people's faces and expressions, which is really important in helping understand people and helping them to understand their own feelings. But anyway, so you get a little bit of bubbles on their wand, on the wand. I'm going to do it again just in case. On the bubble wand, and then with the wand between your eyes, they're still looking at the wand and they're also looking at you. Go 1, 2, 3, blow. Oh, pop. And you can use that to extend their joint attention with you, to get them to engage with you for longer periods. Once they can sustainably do a count of 3 for a few tries or a few days, you can try counting to 4, try counting to 5, see how high you can count, how many back and forth times they'll try it with you. And that's a good sign that they're engaging more and more and more with you. And there is a very good chance, because a lot of times there's transfer, there's they'll gain this ability in this activity, but then you'll see them engaging more and for longer periods of time in other activities throughout the day. One more tip with this, when to add a little bit of complexity and make it even more engaging, more interesting, and add some more language into it. When they start counting, you can give them the choice of the number of times. So how many? Could show this questioning gesture. A lot of times they might do this before they could actually verbalize a question, but that's still meaningful. And we want to encourage them to use anything, any facial expressions, sounds, body language that's meaningful, because that will help them to feel heard even before the words come, and that'll help the words come more quickly. So when they're able to say numbers, you can have little number magnets or pictures of numbers or little number puzzle pieces. How many times? Let them choose one and say, 5 times? You want 5 times? Okay, let's go 5 times. Let's go 1, 2, and you could take turns, let them fill in the next number. 2, they say 3, you say 4, they say 5, blow. And that could be a game of seeing how high they can go. Also, if they're able to shift from 7 to 2 to 10 to 1, that's showing that they're starting to develop some flexibility in their ability, in their way of interacting with the world, which you're going to see not just here in these activities, but also in other activities as well. So there are some quick tips that you could do with bubbles to engage your child, to start connecting, and to start making that connection last a little bit longer before you start doing some of the harder stuff. What we're really trying to establish, and what's missing a lot of times when a kid won't play with another child or with an adult, or when I hear from parents, well, my child doesn't play with toys, is something called joint attention. And that is what that means. It's something that speech therapists and developmental therapists and psychologists use a lot, but I don't know how exposed people are to this concept generally, so I want to take this moment to share it and help you understand it, because it's an important thing to be the master of in your interactions with your child, to know this and know what it means and know why it's important in our interactions. It's really one of the most basic things in any interaction. So joint attention, joint means together and attention is paying attention to something, is paying attention to anything together with another person. So when a child starts saying look and points and looks to the other person, or even if they're not saying look yet, just pointing to something and looking at the other person to see if they're paying attention to that, that's the nice beginning of joint attention. Now, being able to have that in a moment is a really important milestone, and being able to encourage that will lead us to something even better, which is extended joint attention. Now, if a child could stay engaged with another person in a back and forth of some kind, whether it's a conversation verbally like we have with our friends and other adults and even children in our lives, or even if it's just a back and forth playing like we're talking about in these videos, that is the beginning of being able to learn from another person and being able to connect emotionally with another person. So that's why we're doing this series of videos, to start to establish and extend that joint attention, which is going to be the foundation of everything else you do in growing your child's cognition and working towards meaningful language. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please click like and share with anybody you think can benefit from it. For more videos like this, please subscribe. To request a video on a topic that we haven't covered yet, go ahead and leave a comment down below and I'll see that, and if I get enough interest, I'll make a new video. Also, you don't have to do this alone. You could join our You could join the discussion in our private Facebook group, and the link is in the comment box down below. Or if you're interested in working with me personally, send me a PM on Facebook and we'll make a time to talk. In the meantime, use your powers and take care.